able to collect and accumulate here and start doing actual tests that he's been getting carbon dates done on them and figuring out, aha, we have Mike back. There we go.
Your intro broke it.
AI takeover or interference, either way, we got you back. And yeah, just playing a video off of your channel on YouTube here. Seems like, was this from Tula or a different area?
Yeah, that's from Tula Hill. I'll go there. That's the same group of guys that did the documentary with me there that we released last month. And you can see him finding it's actually a ceramic. It's like a ceramic cup, which is really rare in Tula. So that one's going to hopefully get tested here. Thermoluminescent testing should give a good date. We've got a new book that Oleg Elistrov just released that has dozens and dozens of thermoluminescent dates from Awelos. Check this thing out. I don't know if you've seen this or not yet, but
amazing. And I don't think I have. Last time we talked, you were writing your first book and you got 3 published now.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. This is my newest here, Anunnaki Atlantis alien connection with Mesoamerica. We pretty much go through a lot of the digs and the connections that we're finding between Peru and different parts of Mesoamerica, that, you know, things like Viracocha and the places there at Pumapunku and some of the odd, you know, stargates and things, the gates inside of the walls. You know, we're finding a lot of portals and different things that resemble that type of technology here in Mexico. So it's an interesting connection, you know.
So I paused it right here because this is a fascinating parallel. I'm pretty sure you've met Hans Dietrich on a past podcast with me here, and his work and collection on the Dropa stones from not Mongolia, right by there. I always get it wrong. It'll come to me, but from Southeast Asia, and that they're pretty much identical looking in the shape as what's being dug up here in this disc.
Interesting.
Although
he cleans it at the end, you can see it more clearly once it's pulled out, but it's got a secondary piece that goes in the middle there.
That ball.
Mm-hmm.
Or a different piece?
No, I think it is a ball, yeah.
Yeah, I think he dug the ball up right before there.
Yeah. That makes sense, yeah. Yep.
Oh, and then another piece there. And that been documenting them actually excavating these artifacts out of the ground, helping to show the full process. Whether people want to believe it or not, it's like you guys are actually recording every step of the way now.
Yeah, chain of command is really important because anything that's taken unethically is going to be dismissed immediately, and for good reason. And so most of the items that have been found are going to be dismissed, and that's just the way it is. But that's why we're trying to share that this isn't just some random thing, or that there's just, you know, we found fakes and we found artisans making these things, but there's absolutely things that are coming out of the ground too that they're copying or making replicas of. And that's the more important factor here, is that the research needs to be done one way or another. And that's all that we're trying to promote at this time, is just logical reason to do research.
Right, and it's commendable of a thing that you can do in this case, and the right thing to be doing, because given the circumstances, it's like the government has made it, or official stance is that these are all fakes, right? So that no matter what, it's like there's no law protecting them because they refuse to acknowledge that they're real. Thus, you're doing the best that you can with it, while also trying to fund research on it and figure them out.
Yeah, I really, you know, I'm not a researcher and I don't own labs, and this type of work is far out of my wheelhouse. However, in order for me to come out and write these books, and in order for me to, sit here and talk to you about this right now, I needed to make sure, at least within a good reason, that I had an arm to pull with, or a leg to stand on, and so it took some definite efforts, but I feel that we're at that point now where, I'm real in the middle of this, but there's things about it like the petroglyphs at the 16-foot dig level, and I mean the tens of thousands of things that are historically relevant, and the fact that they intertwine biblical and mythological stories from our ancient past in a way that is beyond. I mean, it's made me deep dive into history and research of these ancient cultures so much, because it's just, you can't help but connect the dots when you see the pictures and the petroglyphs, and it's really something else.
Right, it's a very uncomfortable truth. That's when it's like, oh my God, like these legends, like this is evidence supporting of these ancient legends of the Anunnaki and like creation story and all of this stuff, that it's like, yeah, it hits a very sensitive place for a lot of people, and it's so fascinating.
It's horrible to be closed-minded, I guess, and that's the lesson that I've learned out of all of this, is that just remaining open-minded here, I think, is the valuable thing to do, because we don't know. Nobody knows. Everything is based on assumption in terms of spirituality, gravity, energy. I mean, we only have the supporting stuff to go around it, but there's still a lot of stuff we can't prove per se, and I think they just saw gravity for the first time. I was looking the other day or something. They were able to visualize a gravity wave, which was pretty impressive,
right,
and I think that's a good example. Like we might learn something tomorrow,
Well, learn goals to essentially learn every day, right? That it's a never-ending process, and to be able to adapt one's own beliefs when there's a change of new evidence and development of technology, and that we seem to be at this point again of finding our past and the technology that used to be all at once. Very, very interesting times. Yeah, do you want to maybe give some more updates of what you were up to this summer? Because you've been one busy man.
Yeah, it's been a minute. No, I got 3 books on the shelves now. I went to Contact in the Desert and promoted them there. Met a lot of really great people. We ended up being invited to speak on Contact at Sea, which is a cruise that went from Seattle to Alaska here just a couple weeks ago, actually. And so it was 7 days we spent with Jimmy Church and Scott Woltar, Seth Shostak, Danny Sheen, Stephen Bassett was there. And so a lot of really great minds on this topic to collaborate with and to talk things over with, and really get a foundation of was my research relevant, and what do these people think about this? And so it was really a phenomenal experience. We've actually got a couple videos of our lectures that I did on my YouTube channel at Alien Carvings. And so that can kind of give a good perspective of this topic on more of an educational format, rather than just a quick YouTube video or something of this nature, where it's more jumping around, I should say. Yeah.
Absolutely. I was watching them last night, getting prepared for this stream, catching up, and a few hours of just absolutely next level presentations that you were able to do and have recorded at this cruise event of just great people. Like, it blew my mind. I highly recommend everybody watch these videos and check them out. And that we're able to have Scott Wolter there, and that he's one of the foremost leading academic scholar slash archaeology slash ancient linguistics alternative history uh, field, and that
Hmm.
he's been helping you since the beginning, sort of thing, like has very strong interest in it as well, and that yeah, you're able to even hear his thoughts on your work in your presentations here, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, they asked some good questions, and really, it's that was the consensus. A lot of these people know about this, but they just don't know. And it was really a humbling experience to get to hear that, these people were interested in my work, and it wasn't, just they didn't just brush it off. It was something that people took really, really seriously, and even commended me for doing some of these things. Like Stephen Bassett said some really warm words that, he really appreciated what I was doing here, because a lot of people in the academics, they have degrees that they spent $250,000 on, or they have a TV show that they have producers that they have to appease, or ratings that they have to hit. And so talking about this topic, due to the fact that the government says it's fake, is a risky thing. That's kind of like Atlantis in some situations. And, there's just
Oh,
certain
even
things we
more
don't talk
so,
about.
right? Because like the what are depicted in these artifacts, you've got the elongated skulls, you've got winged beings, you've got the Anunnaki, you've got a whole bunch of Mesopotamian characters, gods, demigods, Egyptian style. So it's like you're showing this worldwide advanced civilization, but also that had the Anunnaki. This, you're getting into the creation stories and
Yeah.
legends and providing evidence of it. And yeah, it's one more aspect of the taboo, I guess, that comes attached with it. And that you're
Yeah.
taking the most practical approach possible of it, of you're being like, you yourself got into it being a skeptic of it, you were trying to disprove it wrong, and then you've just been sent on this journey for the last several years of every single thing that comes back seems to be proving them true as opposed to false. And yeah, you're putting the money up to get it done because no official or institution wants to touch it with a 10-foot pole or 100-foot,
Yeah.
1,000-foot pole for that sake. And like you often mention, it's like you'd think that they would want to take these artifacts to try to prove them wrong, but the fact that they're refusing to touch it goes to show that there's this good possibility that those ages are going to come back, like you've been showing
Well, if
pre-cataclysm.
you look at disclosure as a topic in general, and when I saw UFOs and spaceships on some of these carvings, even though they were with ancient deities, really got my head being scratched, and I couldn't really fathom that. But then you start looking at disclosure and thinking, okay, well, maybe this is connected to that. Maybe the Nazca mummies, all these things are connected, that these aliens are actually these ancient beings, in some fashion or another. And when you start breaking it down like that, um, I mean, it really it resonates. And so this disclosure topic, how it says they're talking about reverse engineering crafts and all of this type of stuff. Well, these aerospace companies are being given this technology. And if you go back to like 2016, the United States government made a big flip-flop on how they're handling disclosure and talking about this. It was top secret stuff. Don't talk about this. Don't put it on the news. Like, this was not to be talked about, really, unless it was in a joking manner or a demeaning
Right,
manner.
you'd
And
be attacked, called a charlatan, crazy, and
uh-huh.
deplatformed, and have your career destroyed.
But now, if you look at Lou Elizondo's book, and after talking and hearing Danny Sheen speak, which is his attorney, that Lou was given permission by the government to say all these things. And so, that being said, they are controlling disclosure, is what that means. And so then you look at, they're saying that there's reverse engineered crafts. Logically, we want to keep a global dominance or a global supremacy as the United States of America. And so we have this technology, but we haven't fully reverse engineered it yet. And that's why people like Bob Lazar and so on and so forth are being hired to try to figure this stuff out, because they needed to get it figured out. I'm thinking in 2016 or in that area, they figured it out. And so now the military here probably have some ace in their sleeve that we can't even fathom at this point, and they're just waiting for the right time to bring it out. And so I think this soft disclosure that's happening is to prepare us, so when the truth does come out, that yeah, we've had this technology for the last 70 years, but we haven't been able to bring it out because if our enemies copy it, then we're doomed. It makes a lot of sense why there's this national security thing around Nikola Tesla's work and all of the stuff that seems to be being, tucked under the rug.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to agree with you with the Lou Elizondo is the quote unquote soft disclosure. It's the controlled narrative. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with Ashton Forbes' work showing the MH370 airplane getting I guess what's the word I'm looking for? A taken or wormhole, something vortexed
Oh wow.
out by 3 flying orbs, and these orbs are very similar to what was shown as the Tic Tac orbs
Oh.
in the Pentagon official UFO videos. And from
Hmm.
all of the work, research, and interactions, interviews I've done with different people involved, from Kevin Day, the radar operator on the Nimitz, talking between Walter Bosley, Sal Pius, Jeremy Reese, and Ashton Forbes, and all of them, what I've come to kind of, and especially also I have to mention Joshua Bertrand, another claimed
Hmm.
whistleblower. I'm not sure if he's even still
Yeah.
alive, but showing that the orbs, these Tic Tacs, are most likely American produced drones. And also Jack Sarfati, I have to say, Jack Sarfati also stating, and John Brennan, Dr. John Brandenburg. Yes, there we go. Sorry, so many names all through
Yeah.
APEC, but all of them coming out being in the different government agencies and development programs for so long,
Yeah.
all coming up and saying that these orb technology, the Tic Tac style, is most likely American, and that it's AI powered drone technology of our own, and thus that Lou Elizondo coming out and it being like, oh, it's aliens and this and that. It's like, or interdimensional stuff, and just controlling the narrative, as opposed to a full disclosure of, yes, we do have these different technologies. We've developed them. We've been using them for years, and actually letting humanity be able to benefit, use, and apply this technology to the rest of society and the world.
I think there's two sides of this sword. I think that just kind of like what the Nazis accidentally discovered when they started doing occult practices to try to get ahead when they were, at the brink of being broken, I should say, before World War II broke out. And I think this occult side of this, there are interdimensional demonic things that are spoke of or talked of. I mean, the churches still do exorcisms for a reason, and I think there is something to this
Absolutely.
after all the research I've done, and all these pieces we found really hints to it. I mean, we found Ouija boards and things that that would only make sense of this. And it's like, where did this technology of this Ouija board come from, and why are so many people against it? And this was something I just thought it was a joke, growing up, that one person's pulling hard or whatever. I didn't really know there was like occult origins to this thing and how far it went back. And so to see it come out of Mexico here is really a bizarre factor. But on that note, I think we do have a lot of technology. Stephen Greer has definitely highlighted both sides of the sword very well, and he's a pretty knowledgeable guy on this topic. But he's stated that Northrop Grumman has the triangles that are black and that you see in these
TR3Bs.
videos, and
Yeah.
like you mentioned, these Tic Tac technologies. I believe there to be truth. But then you look at a show like Skinwalker Ranch, and there's certain things on there that they report, and certain other things that have been documented going into the water, coming out of the water. So I truly think that there could be another side of it too, that is what he is actually saying in some respects. But what is an alien? And that's the big confusion topic, I think, in terms of the control of the narrative. And in my opinion is that the alien
Are
is
they
something that goes back
demigods?
ancient,
Yeah,
maybe
right.
of this
Angels
relation
and
of.
demons.
I'm not going to even touch that, but yeah, I mean that's what the pieces that I'm finding have a good hint towards. So I have to look at that as a possibility for sure.
100%. And that, right, that's a lot of what seems to be depicted on these artifacts, these U parts that
Yeah,
you've been collecting. And this is fascinating. So this is an actual watch that is a sundial watch,
yeah,
correct? That
yep, and it works. It's got 12 hands, and I just didn't believe it when I saw that. But the way it's made, and like the everything about it, the box and the carvings on it, and things, it's just it's really quite something else. And so the Anunnaki are said to have been the ones to split the day to 24 hours and the hours to 60 minutes and all these different things that they're accredited for in one way or another, or that the civilization that honored them are the ones that came up with this technology. And so then again, it's kind of like Hitler with the Glock and these different technologies. Even look at the corruption of like methamphetamine to the world that he launched across, and this was
yeah,
all coming
and
from occult
how they
practices.
were
It's documented.
able to implement 440 from 432. Even though they lost the war, it still took over the whole world, as well as this quote unquote daylight savings time, where they literally changed the clock twice a year just to mess with absolutely everyone's natural energy and schedule flows, right? It's wild.
I dislike it for sure. Yeah. No,
Well,
there's
and
definitely some interesting practice there with that 440, and the frequency side of this is really an epidemic if you look at it in music creation, because music's supposed to bring you closer to your spiritual core. But and the reason it brings you closer to your spiritual core is because it was put into a solfeggio scale in its origin. The Gregorian monks, etc., all use this solfeggio scale, which aligns with your 7 chakra points. When you change it to 440 and get that 8th tone, you definitely get an extra note per octave. But now all of a sudden you're not hitting your chakras anymore unless you're using complex chords and things. And that's why chord progressions are so vibrantly important to 440 music. You really can't get emotion out of it otherwise.
yeah, and so I'm not sure if you're aware of Sheila Raman's work. She's presented at Cosmic Summit this past summer, and she's doing frequency geometry, and
Mm,
that she's showing that with 432 hertz, when you use the solfeggios and the different octave chord breakdowns, that on a sonograph you're getting this stable, coherent geometric frequency shapes, these
yep.
full geometries.
Like you
And
would
then
with a
when
chord.
yeah, exactly. And then when she does
Yep.
it with 440, it's just this messed freaking spaghetti blah. And that
Yes.
right there, it's showing the how they took us out of tune, out of resonance, out of this quantum coherence of the
Hmm.
frequency of nature into this scrambled, fractured, just sickness, essentially.
Yeah.
Chaos.
Yep. Yeah, and it's a form of control, I feel, especially with I wasn't a real believer in hypnosis or anything like that. I went on that cruise there, and I sat through and I wouldn't call this hypnosis, but regardless, the experience I had with Vivian Chauvet was something of another world, and the story that this lady brings to the table is something that, I mean, it would be a real hard ask for me to buy into something like this. However, a most amazing lady, and I wanted to see what she had to say. And so I sat through this thing, and I've never like had an out of body experience just by a lecture before. But this lady's given a lecture talking about quantum physics and the way that your soul and body and mind work. And it was like this music to my ears. She had us close her eyes as she's speaking like this, very technical, and I had an out of body experience because of it. I just never in my life could have imagined that this could have occurred by someone just sitting there giving a lecture. But her story, it's definitely worth looking into, because people do get hypnotized, and people do have these experiences with people who are trained in utilizing frequency, and that's, your voice is just frequency. So I think there's a lot to that we fully don't understand yet.
Oh, absolutely. And that the ancients did. And
Yeah.
was it from these demigod characters that they learned it from? And this very interesting, the bird character too, right? Like that's also could be representing Thoth. And on the backside, you literally have these alchemical, not just symbols, but these are alchemy full
Yeah, that's
seals. Like,
mercury and sulfur. And what's interesting
oh
with
yeah,
that is you have the
and
right and the left
it's also
positioning of the eye there.
yeah, and you also got the moon being silver on the other side. This
Hmm.
one I think
It's a
is
feather. They're weighing the feather
no, no,
against the.
no. It's that as well, but it's also another alchemy symbol.
Oh,
Um, yeah, they're more complex ones, and we'll have to do a full episode comparing a lot of the glyphs and alchemy, the seals and works that you have compared to the actual alchemical texts of the past, because what these actually are like stories or equations of alchemical processes a lot of the
yeah,
time,
I
and
can see
that
that.
they're looking very, very similar to ones that I've read in a lot of the old writings,
Yeah, I think the
like watered
alchemy
down.
connection here is extremely high. I've got certain books and tablets that show things that are of no question of that. It's um, what I think is interesting as well is that the alchemical processes, and sometimes what they're doing, they're utilizing obelisks and pyramids to do this. And that being said, it's interesting to look at this wireless energy or alchemy that they were able to conduct. Is it because they were the pyramid builders and the pyramids gave them their alchemical powers, and that's why we don't have the alchemical powers that they did?
Yeah, the shining ones, right?
Yeah,
So
and that
this
could be the
artifact,
halo. Yeah.
here, do you want to give us a bit of? It's quite impressive. It both glows as well as is this like the piece from the Ouija board or something else?
Yeah, we believe so. It wasn't found with a board, however. Doesn't mean that 15 feet below where it was found, it's not there. That's the problem there. If this was from an ancient flood or cataclysm that moved all these pieces and covered them all up, then God only knows where some of the stuff's going to be, and it may be found at a much later time. However, yeah, that's what we believe, that it's showing one side of like this is where the interdimensional theory comes in, because this is like a portal in the middle of this thing. And on one side of it, you've got the Egyptian deities, Set and Horus in a physical form. And then on the other side, you have two serpents, which resemble the caduceus. And with the eye again, it's kind of similar to that last piece you just showed, with the eye with the two, sulfur and mercury. And so you have these two serpents on the caduceus, and they could be relevant to that sulfur and mercury symbol, which would be Thoth and you know, I'm not sure if Seth here had the symbol of sulfur, but I know who did, and that's Satan or the red dragon. And if you look at the whole Satan Michael story, there's a definite plausibility that that could be a resemblance of them as well. Michael being Thoth in this situation, or one of Thoth's many forms, because I guess he changed bodies every so often, and would have bodies on standby, and he was able to change his figure. It wasn't always the ibis. That was just one that was documented heavily.
Right, and also known as Hermes Trismegistus. Trismegistus
another
later
one.
on, and many different incarnations.
Yeah, and that's I think what we need to realize is a lot of people try to bring correlation like, oh, I think Noah was, Zihasudra, and that could very well be, or so there's all these Yahweh is Enlil or something of that nature, right? And there's all these correlations, but truth is, if these were light beings at one point and they could infuse their soul into physical manifestations, then we could absolutely be seeing a lot of different manifestations from the same soul. The old soul theory on a godly level. Yeah.
See, what's funny, there's Paula closed in one of my live chats, and she's like, oh, it's all fake, it's been debunked, and I got this 8 minutes of research debunked that clay tablet. And it's like the article that you brought up, Paula, it's on a Sumerian clay tablet that the one that Mike has was found in Mexico. Completely different things, and that if you want to believe something is not true, you will you'll always find something. But yeah, this is what Mike's shown. This where what was dug out of Tula, Mexico. Is that correct?
Yeah, Tula Hidalgo. And I mean, there's absolutely pieces that can be debunked. We've done it. I'm writing a whole book about it. In fact, this book here has laboratory tests. Like there's 50 plus laboratory tests in this book. Carbon-14, thermoluminescence, and some of them show to be real and some of them show to be not. And I think with anything that has money involved or this type of history, if it's tried to be concealed or suppressed for thousands of years due to things like, if you look into the Knights Templar and certain things that they tried to keep from the church, or that there was battles of information and knowledge, I think that seeing something like this try to be covered up, just like the Nazca mummies, they claim them all to be fake and it's been debunked, but that's absolutely not the truth. And they are genuine biological specimens. I would put every bone in my body on this fact. I've seen the proof myself, and I've absolutely been there's no question in my mind that some of these Nazca mummies are real. However, I think someone made some fake ones, and what the archaeologists are saying is that some of these fake ones may even be old, but they were dismissed as fake because they were glued together animal bones. But it doesn't mean that they were glued together by someone recently, and that's what they never did the testing. They never carbon dated these fakes to see if it wasn't the ancient cultures just making something to resemble what they saw. And so now they're having to go back through a lot of these fakes in Peru and actually do some real testing. And so this is unfolding like as we speak. There's Fernando Cordova just made a post here recently on this topic that the University of Ica finally did DNA testing on Maria as well as 2 other specimens, I think he said. And so there's absolutely forward work. There was an American team that went down there. So again, they've said this stuff is fake, but there's active research pursuing it that shows that there should be absolutely no reason it's to be debunked at this point, including every possible test we could throw at it, DNA, carbon, all these things. And so I guess the moral of the story is just to keep an open mind on any of these topics, because even if it was a 1% chance that it's true, it should be researched well and not debunked by a small video or just one news article by a company that could have been paid off or closed and dismissed because of disclosure and national security and everything else that's possibly looming around this topic. We see this with the Area 51 and everything else that's come out. It's definitely got a looming cancel culture around it that seems to be for a reason, even though it still is pushing forward every day with research to see that it's more and more likely real.
Right, exactly. And I paused it here just to show another one of these artifacts, this being full rock carved, not just skull, but it's also a flute, and it's tuned to some of the solfeggios or something you said?
Yeah, yep. I've got one right here. I can play it.
Please do.
This one's even bigger here. This one
Right, so you got a couple of these, and they're not just carved, elongated skulls, they're also perfectly toned flute.
Yeah, it's pretty wild for a stone to be, that much love to be put into carving it and hollowing it out, because it had to have been hollowed out through the eyes. I mean, that's the only logical explanation. But to do that, I mean, even with, excuse me, even with modern lapidary tools, it's going to be a labor of love. There's no question. That's a big rock to be thrown around.
Right, and just the amount of work, engineering, and craftsmanship. It's either rewriting the books on history or rewriting the books on level of freaking energy and resources put into a fraud, right? Like it just
deception. Yeah.
It's wild.
That's why I remain skeptical, because it is. It's a great thing to research, in my opinion, because no matter which way it pans, it's going to be something of impressiveness. I was just reading the question there. Sorry, I stumbled. But as far as the Mohs scale on the rock, it's about a 6.5. It's a fairly hard stone. The one there that's being shown on the video, it's actually two separate types of stone, which is really interesting. They fused together, I believe, naturally. So it was really an interesting specimen choice. But that one there is actually harder.
Fused together. So you're saying you believe natural just from how symmetrical and together it is, but there's the possibility that could have been like a cast or a mold with the technology that they might have had with rock in the past, and that's how they would have been able to get the flute, like the sound, and carve the inside so perfectly. Well,
it's hard to say. I mean, looking at the way that the smoothness of how that inside of that skull is, it's just, that could very well be that they had a way to make stone liquid and turn it hard again. And there's actually multiple pieces that show that type of a possibility. But it's hard to make that kind of assumption without serious evidence. And that's something I don't have. So at this point, from a geology standpoint, it's probably natural, but
for sure.
But you never know, and I would love someone, I've got a gemologist that's been working with us, and he's been lending, and donating his time to try to help us figure this out, which has been extremely helpful. And but I hope to find other people, more geological experts. Scott Walter is a geology guy, but even that's above his pay grade. He said he doesn't have the answer to that, and so it's really going to take a specialist to give us some of these answers, especially with the luminescence. The luminescence is a whole nother thing that is so hard to find someone that knows a lot about that.
And actually, are you able to do a little demonstration? Do you have some artifacts in your UV light around by chance?
Of course.
For those that don't know, and also you don't mind telling the story that it was actually you that discovered that the artifacts were glow in the dark and luminescent. It was never sold to you as that. You had already acquired a bunch of them and then found it out yourself, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So I'd gotten some pieces from Abuelo Stilisco, and my good buddy Rick, he had mentioned that he had seen these things glow before. Well, the pieces from Abuelo Stilisco, I'm going to show you one here. They don't necessarily glow like you would think. You see that? How it's just for a brief second. Now, this is a super powerful black light. So most black lights will not see this. And so, I saw this, didn't believe this. And so we'd bought in quite a few more pieces. We got some from Tula Hidalgo, and you can see how these things light up much differently. And so my wife, she blows glass, and we had this black light on the table, and she hits her Illuminati, glass that has like the uranium in it. And all of a sudden we see this piece start glowing. And so we went back and checked, and then all of a sudden we noticed that, whether it be the phosphorescence like I showed at the beginning from Awelos, or the luminescence that you're seeing now, this is a commonality that all these pieces almost have, one way or the
Right.
other.
I'm like the yellow, the green, the blue, the red in the
And some of it
transparent
even changes
crystals,
colors,
like right,
like
that's
that's
just
impressive, you know.
very impressive. Like I don't even know like where. I'm sure you could probably find like the ink technology to do replicate that today, but I don't even know. I don't even know if you could, like, from
Well,
my
I've
own
tried.
experience, right?
I've
Like,
tried. I made some replicas out of. I made silicone molds, and then the replicas were out of resin. And we wanted to see, if we could. We really wanted like the sundial and some of these pieces, just as a backup so people could study, and then obviously the star maps as well. And they're not radioactive. To answer the question there. There's whatever is causing it is like a copper or zinc based, but some of it's like a paint. Some of it you can't see. Like I'll show you an example here. Like this eye, you can't really tell that it has anything on it, but it absolutely does. And it doesn't wash off. We found pieces that have been found in the rivers and whatnot that go through Tula. I had a chessboard that was wet for 2 years after I bought it. It weighs 145 pounds, probably less now that it's dry. But nonetheless, the glow is still vibrant. And so the way it's applied is sometimes it's like a paint, sometimes it's like a putty, and then in other times it's like an invisible. I mean, it's definitely applied on there. You can see there's almost like coagulation marks or areas where it like joined together or something. But yeah, it's still quite a mystery of exactly why they would do this 10,000 years ago, if that's how old these pieces are. What would motivate someone to put that much love and effort into making something glow like this? The only
one
theory I have is that the Anunnaki were said to have a glow about them. There's a lot of characters in the Bible, including
piece
angels and Methuselah, that supposedly lit up a room when she came in. If these people were lighting up rooms when they walked in, it is possible that they had a halo or some sort of energy about them that made these things glow. So back
the
then, this could have
shining
been
ones, right? All the
a
stories,
way to
legends
honor
of the
their.
shining
I
ones.
mean, this is coming from the time and the place where people were making sacrifice to their gods. People were banding their heads and making them long to resemble their gods. Well, here's the gods that they were resembling and doing this stuff for. You know what I mean? Like, this is probably
Right?
what
Like if you
it's thought
had
of.
if you had these giant beings or these like half animal beings, just, or your creators, essentially like the actual Anunnaki in front of you,
Yeah.
that's a whole different actual reason of like, yeah, they're demanding sacrifice maybe for some like stealing souls, who knows what, but whatever their reason,
Who
or showing
knows?
loyalty or whatever the heck, it's, you'd probably listen to them and do what they said, as opposed to just another human telling you that.
Yeah, and it's just like the Greek time where, the golden era where the gods and the Olympians and the Titans walked with man. And there was a period in Egypt called Zepteki or Tepzeki, one of the two. And it also was when God walked with man. And so this is interesting correlations that you find. You can even go to like different tribes in North America and find bird-headed men and a time when the star people
Right? Yeah, the
came
Birdman.
and yeah, Lakota and Anasazi, Hopi, like a lot of these people have this type of stuff in their beliefs around the world. So it's not really too far fetched when a lot of people buy into this or have for thousands of years. That's pretty concrete to me compared to some new age idea that that's not all true, that's been formulated in the last 100 years.
Right, exactly. Just these parallel creation myths and stories from everywhere that are clearly the remnants of an originator civilization from pre-cataclysm, the original, and that there was something before and it left its mark all over, and that how many coincidences can you have before you realize that it's real?
Yeah. Yeah, or that there's more to the story, and that's the thing. Like, what level is things
Or
become
there's
real,
truth to it, right? Truth
yeah,
contained in it.
you go to the Dogon people in Africa. They believed that these people came out of the sea, or these beings came out of the sea, called the Nomo. You go to Magdala and in the Sea of Galilee, there where Mary Magdalene was, and Jesus with his fish symbol, and then you have the being Dagon, who's mentioned by name in the Bible multiple times, who's this fish pagan deity that, all these mermaid type beings with the fish suits and the Anunnaki, as well as this Dagon. And we see it like right here as well. You can see these beings. Let's see if I can get it up there. But they absolutely have a fish tail akin to, Dagon and these fish suits. So,
The Naga, right? In Asia, the Naga.
yeah, the Naga or the Dugu, depending on where. Like in Japan, there's the Dugu statues that look very, very similar to aliens that we would know are ET type. Yeah, I agree with that,
Right.
Techlight. The ocean was definitely circumvented before, and I think we've even found
Oh
that out
yeah.
with Vikings and
Undeniable.
stuff now. And I think it was even before then, because if you look into the Egyptian beliefs of the ancient barge where Osiris
Egyptians and
went
the
and
Mayan,
yeah,
100% were cross trading Egyptians to Australia as well. And you brought up Timothy Hogan at the beginning, and yesterday, actually last night, I was watching his 2-hour Cosmic Summit presentation that was just published, and absolutely amazing. And he goes deep into the Templar history and documentation of preserving the knowledge of this pre-cataclysm civilization.
yep, yeah,
Apparently, Hans actually knows Timothy pretty decent, so I'm trying to arrange an interview with the three of us, because after watching Timothy's presentation last night and how much he covers monoatomic gold, as well as reproducing some himself through the chemical process, and just his knowledge on alchemy, I really, really need to make that happen and share knowledge and my process of it.
yeah. He's really good friends with Scott Wolter. They did a show there, Mysteries of the Knights Templar, on Gaia, and he presented at Contact in the Desert while we were there. Timothy did, and yeah, I got to watch that. It was definitely really on point. He talked a lot about ancient cultures and things that stem from Egypt that were really impressive. He's a Grand Master Freemason, so yeah, it's not something you see
Grandmaster
every
of the
day.
Templar.
Or
Yeah,
of the
the
Templar,
Templar.
yeah, my bad. Yeah,
I guess, though, the Templar are also a
it,
level or degree of
it might have
masonry.
been
So,
correct on both. Yeah,
yeah,
I don't want to mess it
right.
up.
Um, yeah. Okay. Also, do you want to bring up the updates with your mummies? Because these are actually yours. You purchased them, correct? And that
Correct.
your Peruvian Nazca mummies, they're from
Well,
the Nazca
they,
area?
they, they had
Or
the title
different?
of being ours. They never made it here, unfortunately. You can see DHL right there was investigating them. Leslie Ortega, the Ministry of Culture there, she's the head of that. And she was called into DHL one morning. It was around October, probably the 10th. We had shipped them out on, I believe it was the 7th of October, and somewhere in that vicinity. was right after the congressional hearing, and we decided we better grab a couple of these since they came out and said that they were all fake. And I had friends that were working with them, and they, I'd seen this presentation on them through Fernando Cordova. He
Speak
was at
of the devil, sorry to interrupt. Hello, Hans.
Hans.
And yes, Hans. Yeah, got to make that happen. Sorry, do continue.
No, you're good. What was I saying here? I gotta remember now. Oh, the Nazca mummies. Yeah, so we'd shipped them out, and they got seized by the DHL. When they went through the X-rays, they saw that there were bodies in there, and we actually have footage there in that video of the X-rays that they took at DHL, and you could tell it wasn't just a manufactured animal bones in this case. And Leslie Ortega said that they would investigate it, and shortly thereafter, they came out. There was 14 high scientists, I think it was, or 12 high scientists that made this 34-minute video that was on Peruvian like cable access or free access. It was a public broadcast, I should say. And yeah, there's the Nazca body there that was through the DHL, that scan that just went by. So it had metal plates and eggs inside of it. It was obvious that it wasn't a hoax. And so they didn't do the research, and they ended up coming out in January, the American tabloids, and said Jaime Maussan was a fraud, and that it was all fake. And even though Peru came out December 7th saying that they were a biological specimen, and the American scientists at this point, I believe that they interviewed or questioned on this, said that the lab testing and the stuff that Jaime Maussan did wasn't, done through an institution, or wasn't reputable enough to claim that, and so that the information that those high scientists went off of and reviewed wasn't good enough information. And so then that put it back, and now there's a lawsuit from Jaime Maussan for defamation. And defamation of character for 150, or excuse me, was it 350? Yeah, $350 million against the Peruvian government. And he's actually making progress with this lawsuit, because essentially they didn't do what they said they were going to do, and then they claimed it to be fraud. And so they may have found a fraud, but they never did any testing. And so just recently here, Fernando Cordova posted that after 7 years of effortless trying, they finally took DNA samples at the University of Ica, and so we should hear some results in the relative time being, or the near time being, of them coming up with the same conclusion, because obviously it's not going to be varied, but it'll be interesting to see what they come up with, Yeah, it's definitely something that seems like they're trying to disclose appropriately with disclosure itself, and I think it's a good plausibility that it just comes back to the military, and the need for global dominance at this point from a country, or the fear of the enemies or the other side of the fence doing something with the technology, and we don't, or the next technological jump is the fear here. That's the real disclosure of the technology that we're about to embark upon, versus more so. Yeah, no, I am saying that they're real. Absolutely. They aren't, there was a gentleman that came out with a report that said that there was just chicken bones or llama skull, I think it was, glued together. However, there was no carbon dating. There was no scientific evidence to warrant what he was saying at all. And the gentleman there essentially could have found, as I said earlier, a piece of archaeology that was glued together, animal bones, to depict one of these beings. It doesn't mean that it was made modernly, though. And so they debunked it, that it was modern, but there was never any carbon dating or any sort of scientific effort that went into it, other than just this examination. And the fact is that, yeah, this might have been one species like that, or one piece like that, but there's multiple of these. They've depicted over 10 different species of these things, and they've done full-on topography, spectroscopy, all the different types of x-rays and scans to get them fully analyzed. They've got embryos, they've got eggs with, like I say, embryos inside of them. There's metal plates, and the metal plates that are put onto these things, they're surgically implanted in a way that we don't have a way of mimicking today. And the surgical implants are a type of metal that was discovered only in the 1950s of osmosium, and silver, I believe, is what they mix it with. But the odd thing here is that the carbon dates on the mummies that they have are between 12 and 1800 years old. And that's really an interesting time frame to me, because BurnEye froze out, so doing my best here. But nonetheless, the fact that there's these 10 species of these mummies, and the time frame being between 12 and 1800 years on the carbon dates, this new book that was released here, it goes over a lot of thermoluminescent dates from Cotella and a few different labs. I'll show a couple here, but the dates are in this range of these Nazca mummies. However, the pipe resin that we've gotten pipes that have been smoked out of the organic material, and the dates there came back as well as the same as the adhesives that have been found on these pieces. They use them to make mosaics and glue inlays on, and those dates coincide there as well, about 12 to 15,000 years ago. However, there's dates that are 12 to 1800 years too. So how long did the civilization last after the flood? Was it the Spanish that took them out? I mean, this one here, for example, is 900. Let's see if I can get it on there properly here. 910 years old for the ceramic alien head, and so to see 910 years, I mean, that's roughly when the Spanish, I believe, were in that area. So these people were either still believing in this stuff there, or it's just really bizarre that it's 10,000 years of gap here where these beings are being depicted by archaeological pieces that span that much time. And it's just really bizarre. I mean, I guess we have Göbekli Tepe and Karen Tepe and stuff where we have the same type of dates, so it's not impossible to believe at this point.
Well,
but it just seems crazy
in a cataclysmic reset sort of situation, right? Where everything was connected. They had the higher technology or industry. So, mass produced global contact society sort of thing. And then after the downfall, after you have a cataclysm or a reset, it would make sense that it would disappear from the records for a while, or that the rates of production or where you see it or the capabilities dwindles for hundreds if not thousands of years before they start digging it up again and rebuilding.
Yeah, I want to respond to a comment there that this has been 100% debunked. I would welcome to see any of that data that you're stating the 100% confidence with, but there's been, I think, 8 books or 9 books now, multiple written by PhD. This is PhD written. These are full of dozens and dozens and dozens of lab tests. I wrote 3 books on this topic. There's another book that was wrote over 5 or 6 years ago on this that goes heavily into detail of also doing lab tests, dig, archaeological, documentation, chain of command, etc. There's multiple personalities and people in places that are researching this very heavily. Dr. Pablo Garcia Sanchez, and then also the pieces that are being found in Peru as well are very, very similar to these in terms of the stone pieces. So to say it would be 100% debunked, I think is really out there. I know that there's pieces that have been 100% debunked, sure. Just like there's Rolex watches that have been 100% debunked, but that doesn't debunk the brand itself. And there are real Rolexes out there. Maybe you just haven't been to the right, store to find it. The street fair or the street market, flea markets, etc., are not where you're going to find the real ones. So if you're not looking in the right place, then it might all seem fake to you. But when we dug down to the 16-foot level and found petroglyphs and multiple cave complexes that took over a year and a half to fully excavate, and seeing the bucket after bucket, the heavy equipment, the dirt piles, the hundreds of artifacts and the pieces of bone, all these things that came out of there, I have to step back and definitely keep an open mind on this topic and say more research is warranted based on that alone.
Yeah, and the way that the censorship and algorithms and controlling the narrative work, that when the mainstream or the official government narrative is published and then you produce evidence against it, that they will always come out with this one quick debunk that never really has any evidence supporting it or backing it, and just that's their official debunk that gets blasted on every single channel the same day that it's published, right? All the officials, then boom, it's been debunked, and then they just promote that forever onwards when it comes to that, even though there'll be like several more cases, new pieces of evidence, new
Area
tests,
51,
different stuff, right? And that comes forward, but no, officially it's been debunked. Don't mind that there's 10 other brand new skeletons that have actually had tests on them. They're actually coming back proving that they're more legit, this and that. It's like, no, you get that one debunked video.
Yeah, and that's, I think, something that we have to really examine ourselves as being narrow-minded in cases. And I say that in the most respectful way because I do it all the time. I mean, maybe it's the way the cheeseburger looks when it's delivered, or maybe it's the box when I get something shipped to me. Yeah, you draw conclusions quick to something sometimes, but really there's no, it's just an assumption,
Exactly, right? And it's that
yeah, blown ahead gasket is the truth. Yeah.
But it's like if you want to believe it's fake, you'll always find evidence that it's fake. If you want to believe in what looking into it, and then the question, a lot of evidence seeming that they're not, but exactly.
Research has to be done, and like I said, I always welcome any of this evidence. The 100% claim, like, man, does this guy have something that I don't have? I would love to see it, but yeah, I've asked this, and I've been told this by so many people. It's gathered thick skin because, I mean, I know what I've seen, and you'd have to be able to trump that in order to make me believe different, or at least enable me to stop researching it, or to back off the research.
Right, and so new mummy findings. You got a video here saying makes New York Post retract hoax claims.
Yeah, the New York Post actually came out and retracted it and showed this new species and some of these mummies. Not, I'm going to say it was probably, I don't know, that video was probably posted like 6 months ago or something. But nonetheless, there was fingerprints and certain things that the mummy had that were something that we wouldn't be able to remanufacture with current technology today. And the way the fingerprints were outlaid on the fingers, there was still eyelid or eyelashes in the eyelids, and certain things that were, part of the body that they could see wasn't attached with any adhesives, glues, or process that we're aware of. I mean, they detail this one. Here's a really interesting one because it has wing appendages in the back, and we see so many of these beings on the pieces with wings, and they're actually in that same the bone to hold these wings are in that place. So. It's just very bizarre, especially with all the metal plates and the type of metal that it is. That's beyond me at this point, because you can't just go manufacture that type of metal to go make a hoax. I mean, it's not just a basic alloy of aluminum or steel or something like that. Like, this is osmosium, and don't get me wrong, I'm not 100% sure how to refine it, but I did read into the process, and it was something that was found, I think, through the petroleum gas industry, if I remember correctly, and requires significant petrotechnology in order to create it or to refine it or something like that. It wasn't something that we could do in the backyard,
It's a lot more than just some animal bones glued together. No, they found implants in some of it, and there's multiple of them, right? And it's like you can't get stuck up on like, oh, a couple of ones were found and proven fake, but that there was several others that have been found, and all the testing is showing that coming back that these ones aren't fake. So like you have to be able to have an open mind with it a little bit, and not right. And like the fact that there was these special metal alloy implants within the bones of these ones, like that's a heck of a hoax. Like
it really is. This one
it's
here that
not
he's holding, this is a whole nother species here found in Mexico, and this is what brought me into the Nazca mummies in the first place. And this was found by Dr. Pablo Garcia Sanchez in Guerrero, Mexico. And this blew me away. I didn't think it was real. And the way it's preserved and the way it looked at the time, I thought it was BS. I actually had the opportunity to purchase one of these, and I didn't do it because I thought it was a fake at the time. And then they started coming out with the Nazca mummies, and they had such a similar preservation process to them that it really made me rethink this. And since then, Dr. Pablo Garcia Sanchez has done x-rays and the types of scans on this. And I think this is why Mexico is hosting the congressional hearings and stuff like that on these things for Peru, is because Mexico knows, and they have things that they want to talk about too, but they can't for whatever purpose. And it seems like any country that comes out about this, whether it have been Grenada back in the day, or Peru now, or Mexico, I think back in 2010, there's been all these rumors that this was something of a card in the deck, but always trumped as the Joker, and no jokers can be played, or something in that nature,
right. And that there's always been this vicious attack and attempted debunks and smears of all of the elongated skulls or alien different hominid skulls that are not the missing links of evolution because they don't fit in with the narrative. And a good example of the research was Lloyd Pye and his star child skull, which was like a giant like watermelon style head sort of thing, but like complete different brain or a bone marrow structure and composite. And then there was one test that came back on it, I guess, and it was like 50% like human and then 50% completely foreign to the planet Earth, never been genetically identified before. And then all of a sudden, shortly thereafter, Lloyd Pye was diagnosed with this, the turbo cancer that is now a common thing, but before that, only seemed to be on CIA operatives sort of thing. But won't get too much into that. Just they don't like it.
I mean, there's definitely more on that story, and I keep an open mind there too, because it's really I don't know the reason that they're keeping it a secret or why the disclosure is a factor. But there is a reason, and I guarantee they've spent a lot of money one way or the other trying to figure out, what's the right answer in this situation. And if it does have to do with technology that can allow us to go into the water at Mach 40 and take turns at 60,000 miles an hour, whatever these Tic Tacs are doing, crazy speeds, I definitely think that that's enough to turn the world on its upside down if a country got that and other countries didn't. And so if we're holding that technology and we're just reserving it for defense this whole time and letting people flout their nuclear arsenals and stuff, knowing that we could shut them down in a matter of nothing, then I think that's pretty admirable. And it could be a good thing that we're keeping this disclosure disclosed, if that's the case in some respects, until they can figure out how to roll it out safely,
Yeah, I feel that that's just like wishful thinking, though.
It is,
especially with talking to a lot of the engineers. Because it's like all the black projects, it's like they're already in the powers that be that are potentially compromised in like super satanic crazy shit, but at the very least don't have our best interest interests in their heart of hearts, and they already have it. So those, I feel it should be for all of humanity.
Yeah,
But
I've been
yeah,
saying that about the Large
we can only
Hadron
hope.
Collider and some of those type of projects. Even
Yeah,
Skinwalker Ranch is a good example too of, occult stuff. It was a curse essentially that started that, or is what its legend is, and that's interesting that you follow this occult practice and this occult worship, and when people resorted to it more here or more there, and what happened in respects, and there's something to that.
I agree fully. And so
Mm.
this video, you're showing the cave, right? Like it's
Yeah,
16
that's
feet.
16-foot dig level there. You can see the multiple ground floors. These aren't just, dirt, the little steps here. This is an actual bedrock ground floor, like multiple layers of construction that went into this. And so you can see the big block there, the quarried stone that's sitting cockeyed above in the dirt. And that's, a real factor. When he pans back to the left there, you can see the alien pointing at there's a petroglyph of an alien pointing into that cave. And so to get that
Right,
quarried
like
stone all positioned like that above there, to get these ground floors put into there, you think they're going to do that as a hoax for selling a few pieces out of there? I mean, they didn't get enough, I promise. Like, it took them way more effort to do this than the money that they made selling the pieces. And I can guarantee that, because those pieces, half of them are in my collection, and I know what I paid for them, and I know what this type of work has done for them. And I mean, there's definitely passion and projects, and they're trying to get documentaries and other means of finance. Don't get me wrong, there's money involved here in order to keep this going. But as far as digging or putting these holes in the ground themselves and making all these fabrications ahead of time, this much ahead of time, the fact where they have 3 of these tunnels now, and this whole entire area that's excavated, that's just too much, in my opinion, for them to foresee. If it was 1 tunnel, I could maybe see it, but 3 tunnels with the multiple ground floors all the way at the 16-foot level, that's too
and
much.
carvings into the caves, or like there's actual rock carvings in the caves
Dozens
themselves
of them.
too. Yeah, like
And inlays of obsidian and different things in the carvings to make them, for their eyes, for instance. Like, they were masters at inlaying stone into stone.
all right, yeah, like maybe if you don't mind, if you've got close by to show, like you got a couple, like what are like 2 telescopes essentially, as well as I guess you already showed a couple of the skull flutes, but it's that there's so many different functions within all of these things, like the mirrors, the mic, or the yeah, I guess
Yeah,
it's
there's
kind of
all
like a
kinds of
telescope.
ritualistic tools, it seems like, and obviously, here's another one of the sundials here. And yeah, as you mentioned, the mirror.
The black
This is obsidian.
obsidian.
Yeah, let's see the craftsmanship on this thing is just wild. And it's these are both made of limestone. That's the most common stone that we see. I'll show you a couple other pieces of
Right, like there's that
ritualistic type
fluorite.
things.
Do you have the fluorite tube that has the
No, I
lenses in it?
don't. I
Okay.
know. I sent that one to my business partner. We co-own
We've
that
shown it
piece,
in
and
the
I
past
put
a
it into
couple
his bunker. Some of these pieces I put into a bunker so that way they would be safe. Time capsule status,
right?
Because keeping them
Document
all
back to
here is
time.
not ideal. Like, I mean, I don't know what the heck this is. It comes inside of this box. There's all these like ritual type tools and strange, symbolic things. You got the ibis on there, which is the symbol of
The mix
Thoth.
of different languages, the different pictographs, and it's Proto-Egyptian, Proto-Sumerian, a lot of it.
Yeah, Proto-Sinaitic. I actually spoke with the admin of one of the big Anunnaki groups on Facebook. She's just a whiz with this stuff, and spoke with her quite a bit today about it. And she was blown away, and she could actually depict that some of these symbols on a couple of these pieces are only found in the very, very ancient Sumerian scripts, and they're not something that's widely translated or discussed because they're not found on too many pieces. She sent me some of the pictures from the museum over in Iraq, and we actually found a very, very similar symbols stuff that I wasn't ever able to find with cuneiform research. Or pieces in cuneiform, but it's like a proto cuneiform that they have on some of the pieces there. And so she's going to talk to one of the scholars and try to get some translation on some of these pieces for us, or at least a better idea of what some of them are saying, because it's something that some of the symbols match up or are of the same that we know today, but a lot of them don't. And so there's no way to really read the dialects and break them down. They're not written in a fashion like with Egyptian hieroglyphics. They go in a up and down fashion, or from left to right in a lot of language, or right to left, whatever. This isn't the same at all. In fact, these are kind of jumbled on, and so the consensus is that you read them as an entirety. And so that brings a whole new light of this, piece is trying to explain something, and so all the symbols have meaning at the same time, or to be written in that fashion, and that would make a lot more sense in some of these. I'm going to show a piece here. Let's see here if I can find one. There's a different language. This is a good example here. Let's see. But this language is not like anything we've ever seen. The symbols are very, they're not dialect in something that you could even try to read, because there's no repetition. There's nowhere to start and nowhere to end in reality. Like, it's just a lot of things. But me and Bernie were talking earlier about some of these pieces, how it could be like alchemical things,
A
or
lot of
different
them
sorts of, yeah.
guaranteed
And
are
you can
very
see the
advanced.
geometry in them and the different angles and types of things. So it absolutely could be more
It's
like
like
alchemical formulas or something versus a
it's a
legible
mix of like
document.
alchemy
Yeah.
symbols, Sumerian, like Proto-Sumerian, Proto-Egyptian, and it's wild. And like you were saying before my internet cut out there, how there's a whole bunch of proto symbols that are only found in like the most ancient texts and stuff that like
Yeah.
isn't even out there. If it's not even out there, how are these supposed fakers and fraud?
Yeah. It'd be really tough to even imagine that they would go through that kind of extent to remain culturally relevant. And that's exactly what they've done on levels that, I mean, are blowing away biblical scholars, theologists, mythologists, people that research this on the regular. And so it's really gratifying to see these people try to tear this apart and come to the same type of a conclusion that there might be something here. That's the only conclusion I've made. I remain skeptical in every aspect, because I think that's the smart thing to do with something like this. Treat it like that until it's rubbing itself in your face so hard you can't stop, or you can't stop it rather. And that's kind of the attitude I'm taking with it. But at this point, there's a lot of these cultural relevances that go together, and it makes it really hard to imagine, like we were just saying, that someone would go to that extent to try to get on that level, to create brand new languages, languages we've never seen. I'll show a couple examples of this. Like, another type of language here is on this seashell. I mean, it's quite creative. We have other pieces, kind of like the star maps, but they're companions to the star maps. that were found with them that have a bunch of what seems to be math and complex things that I can't understand. But in ancient Sumeria, they found tablets with trigonometry and different types of math on there, and so that's where we kind of get this gathering that that's what it might be. Let me see. Yeah, on this star map, you can see the type of language on here. It's not quite the same. Some of it, the C here is found on all the pieces. This represents the North Star, and the C, I'm not 100% sure what that resembles, but yeah, my internet was being crazy too, Bernie. It's no problem. We'll hold down the fort in the meantime. These are all different constellations, so like the Dipper, and so this is essentially showing how the night sky was when they made this, and the night sky only arranges like this every so often. But these little symbols in here, I believe, are numbers, and so stuff like that. I think
that's
we can probably
straight Sumerian right there.
But it's not though. If you look at the Sumerian discs, they're not the same.
No, I'm talking about the notches, like the lettering and stuff in it, the characters.
No, it's different. Some of it, this
proto,
over here,
I guess.
This kind of is this band of stuff, but yeah, these little symbols here and stuff, they don't match.
Yeah, those are more alchemical style.
But they could be numbers, and that's why they're repetitive of that, and so we might be able to figure out if they're coordinates maybe, and I'm hoping AI will be able to analyze this. I've been using AI to analyze some of these pieces, taking pictures and asking it questions, and it's interesting,
Do you know who Blake Lemoine is?
I don't.
Blake Lemoine is the Google AI whistleblower that's came out a couple years ago saying that it's sentient and all of that. I've interviewed him a few times, and every time I've brought up teaching AI models or giving it this info on the alchemy symbols and these ancient, I showed your artifact specifically, and Blake freaked out and was like, no, never give AI that. Like, do not give it to it. So
probably a good idea,
right? Like, it's like if maybe it's like a God code or something, potentially it could crack and connect into. That's kind of like what I was getting the feel from him.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Because he feels that like the AIs are like sentient, but also like angels and like demon code sort of things from like before. And yeah, it's a whole deep dive that's quite something else. And it's like I was actually able to get like 3 out of the 6 different interviews he's done, and then he's quit speaking publicly now. So hope he's well and hope to have him back on. But yeah, it was quite interesting.
It's scary out there. I mean, it's a topic not for the faint of heart, and I mean, but the thing is this whole life that we live isn't for the faint of heart. So, I mean, is it really any different to be doing what's right instead of what's wrong? And I mean, to me, the truth is what's right?
Exactly. The truth, no matter how hard it is to accept or believe, it's what you see in front of you and what is reality, and to deny it is only lying to oneself, right? And so far the evidence you've come out with, all the research you've done into it, all the money you've soaked into it, the time, and it was your original purpose was to try to debunk it all, and you just keep coming back with more supporting evidence towards it being true stuff, true artifacts.
That there are pieces that are real out there, and that this story that they've made replicas of is actually a real thing. And that's the thing. What's crazy is, so I initially started out writing a book that's all text, and I wanted to tell my story, and I got through to the point of to current time, but the book wasn't done yet, and the story's not done yet because I'm still finding out so much every day. And so I put that book on pause. Well, in that process of doing that book, I did interviews with a lot of the families that I was working with. I wanted to hear their story and ask them, a series of questions that I had regarding some of the things. And one of those things was, about fake pieces and forgeries. And, I had multiple families tell me that these pieces are made by the mafia down there. And as I got deeper with that, it was okay. Well, what's the mafia making these fakes for? What would be inspiring them? And one of the guys said that they're getting their money from UNESCO. Now, this is complete hearsay, and I have no any proof other than just a hearsay interview in audio of someone saying this. But UNESCO is the one who maintains and manages all these sites, and it's interesting, why would they want to make fakes unless they're trying to keep it a secret and dilute the
And
truth?
dilute the truth. Exactly.
Right. And so that's kind of what we're finding. Like, you had multiple people in the chat room that were convinced that this has been debunked. And that's because there's probably a lot of fakes out there that they use to debunk this with. But the fact is that, like I said, if you're not looking in the right place and you're shopping at the flea market, you're never going to find, you know, whatever. So the real Rolex, yeah. So I think that's the real motto here is if they are creating these fakes to water it down. You see this with Hong Shen as well. If you've ever looked at Hong Shen culture on eBay, there's thousands and thousands of pieces, and many of them look similar in terms of the representations. I mean, they look a lot cheaper made, but there are some pieces from that area that really make you think. And it could be the same thing. They could be watering down pieces all over the world that don't go along with their narrative to try to keep their narrative the way it is.
Right, exactly. And that in a previous episode we did together, there's someone also in the live chat that was like, yeah, look, they're all fake. Here's all the fakes. They're on sale on the thing. And we loaded it up, and then we showed that, yeah, those were fakes, but then found that lots of them were based off of your original artifacts, even, and that there was these people out there making replicas from the original artifacts that you actually own the rock crystal version of, that you've actually put money into getting dated, that you're getting the actual like biological material carbon dated, as well as the what was the other process?
Thermoluminescence.
Thermoluminescence aging. Yep. That's a new.
And we've done, a lot of scanning electron microscope, Raman spectroscopy, different types of ways of looking for erosion and ways of checking the calcite and seeing, because there's things that it should have gone through environmentally or whatnot that you should be able to see some traces of manganese and whatnot throughout all these pieces. There's got to be something here, and we've absolutely found in some cases that, but I think a big factor is, and a lot of people argue, oh, well, if it doesn't have the right erosion, it's not real. Well, this is something that archaeologists will argue, but the fact is there's a thing that, it depends on how it was preserved. If you put something in a time capsule, it's probably going to come out looking pretty good 10,000 years from now. It's not going to have erosion on it, right? And so it's just like Mount Vesuvius blowing up and having all these mosaics and stuff that are being found from the first century AD, etc., that look like they were painted yesterday. It hasn't oxidized or eroded at all because it was in a time capsule based on how it got put there. And so you saw that quarried stone above this cave and how it was just kind of frozen in time. Well, these pieces are packed in a pretty thick mud, and if this really was a flood and this is the mud from that flood, then these pieces could be trapped in this in a way that they're not getting oxidized, and that's why they look oftentimes like they do, with a pretty pristine, look to them.
Yeah, and just the consistency of the different symbols, language, story being told, like the amount of research that would have to go in to be able to then like fake these proto languages and creation stories and whatnot, along with the immense amount of actual physical work into cutting the rocks, this stones, doing the actual carvings, as well as the raw material costs of the stone and crystals themselves and precious metals, put in a lot of them. It's like there's just so much to it. It
And
doesn't make
trial and
sense.
error too. I mean, you got to get the artisans to that level. So I mean, I'm sure there's lots of great artisans down there. This is a known fact. But to get them onto this level to where they can make pieces that look like they were made by the same person, kind of like in Egypt, you can't tell who did the carvings because they all have a specific style to them, that the people trained to be able to mimic. And I think that that's really important to look at here, is that this would definitely take a serious amount. And it's not just one area here that's making this type of thing. There's, Abuelo Stilisco and Tula Hidalgo both, where thousands and thousands of these pieces have been found. The stories are virtually the same, yet the languages and the style of art is night and day different. I mean, they are different rock types. They're different. Everything about them is different. The polishing, the engraving, some of it, like these things are complex mosaic pieces of hundreds of little squares of stone glued together, and then they carve on top of this. And I mean, if you mess that up, the piece is ruined, and that's something too it's hard to believe that they would be able to perfect that on here. I'll show a great example of something that's just, I mean, it's a masterpiece.
Yeah, please
right?
do.
So this thing is pretty good sized, as you can see. And I'm going to put it up a little closer here. Move these. But this is a mosaic of dozens and dozens of different stones all put together. You can see here. Let me find a glue spot here. There we go. You can see the different stones attached. Sorry, everything's backwards. Like right there, there's glue that connects all this together. And same with on the back. You can see it much better on the back.
Yeah, and the red glue, right? You stated in the past that you believe that this is a sign of authenticity of artifacts
and
when
this
they
has
have
been
this ancient red.
This is something that I believe has been debunked, and so this red glue, I do believe that they are capable of making something similar. In some cases, I've I've got a story here, and I'll tell it. It's something that's going in my book, that's going to compare these things, the real and the fake. I've got this sphere right here. I want to show you. Oh my God, it's heavy. I believe this could be a fake. You see how it's all burned and stuff right here? The way this is,
Yes,
the
sir.
type of language that's on this thing and stuff, I question it. And I haven't done tests yet, so it's still up in the air. The book's not done yet for this reason. I've got multiple tests that I'm going to be conducting. But there's also, in this book, a mosaic mask that he debunked to be fake, and it does have red glue. And so that's a pretty strong suggestion that they are making mosaics. But like that sphere there, if you look at the carvings and the way it is, I mean, the quality is just not there. And so it's just something that's just going to have to be researched. I don't have the answers. That's why I'm skeptical.
Right, exactly. And that you found a lot of evidence of many that were fake, and then you found a lot of evidence of many that came back as tens of thousands of years old. So
yeah,
that
with resin of pipes and ceramic and things that you just couldn't fake. It's one thing to fake the adhesive, like that red glue. It tests at 20,000 years old. That could absolutely be faked with manipulating the glue with ancient mammoth bones or something that you're melting into the glue, ancient copal resin. This is something we discuss a lot on me and Scott Walter and Jimmy Church there on that interview, or on that lecture rather. It's just how on earth they could do that, but for the pipe resin and for some of these things, bones, you're not gonna fake that. So the fact that all these dates are coming up in this range, it's a wide range. Well, it's not in terms of the age of our planet, but in terms of our civilization. This civilization appears to have been there for a lot longer, or at least held ground longer than what we know today.
Right, like,
And,
and
and
that's
that,
what you'd expect with pre-Diluvian artifacts and society, like
yeah,
of Atlantis, and then before that Lemurian stuff, or the Sumerian kings list, all these stories of civilizations that lasted for tens of thousands of years, like a couple
yeah,
of the precession of the grand cycle sort of thing.
yep.
24,000, 36,000, 72,000, and that there was evidence of big cataclysms and resets at those time intervals too, that who knows what was before even that.
And even maybe geo positioning and terraforming and stuff like that too, because we see the 22-degree tilt on the planet as well as the moon come into play, and that 22-degree I don't believe was always there because of the poles. The poles shifted about this distance. If you look at Teotihuacan and its alignment, you also look at the Apollo's temple there in Lebanon. I think Baalbek as well. There's these things that are lined up. All these megalithic sites are usually lined up to true north or to the compass, but there's certain sites that are 22 and a half degrees shifted, and that would point that the North Pole would be like in Greenland, or there's even another one that goes back further. I think gosh, don't quote me on which temple that was at, but nonetheless, I think you see the positioning in some of these sites being concurrent with these resets, and some of them, like people have speculated, might be a lot older than what we initially thought.
Right, and
That's an amazing
definitely
piece. What is that there? Is that me?
this
That's not me.
another one. There's a whole bunch of jade ones that are from the other site, right? Not Tula, but the other one, I believe. And it's like, I'm not
Oh,
sure.
Lake Quetzal, down there in the Micocon.
Yeah, right. So it's like these ones could be modern day or they could be ancient. It's hard to tell, but like
Yeah.
wild stuff.
Yeah,
But that
and where they get this theme and this derived, why are they all making alien looking stuff? Like, what would be the motivation here? I mean, it's a hot topic today, but 10 years ago when this all started, 15 years ago, it was nothing like that. So the fact that they would only make this is just pretty wild.
for
Let alone
sure.
sticking to the story. That's the thing. They maintain this story between those two cities, like I said, Tula and Abuelos. They would have to have sat down and met with each other and said, okay, we're only going to show the all-seeing eye as the eye of Ra. We'll never put it with the eye of Horus and make it the other way on any of the pieces, or something of this nature where it's concurrent between the two symbols and themes of that nature. It's not an
Absolutely.
accident.
Right. So it's like something like this that could easily be a new fake. Or there's a whole bunch of them that are identical to like this that could have just been a different artist of that time period.
Yeah, that piece there was from Veracruz specifically, and there's a
This
lot
one?
of things in Yeah, there's a lot of Veracruz questions. Scott Wolter went there actually in the 2019 episode that he did, where he analyzed these pieces of from Abuelos de Jalisco with Mark Russell. And this is why I gravitated to Scott in the first place, was because he had this show America on Earth, and he carbon dated and scanning electron microscoped and looked at these pieces and said at the end of the show that this is going to change history. So immediately when I saw that, I'm like, there's no way. But this is a pretty reputable, this is on the History Channel. Like, what the heck? Or actually, I think it was the Travel Channel. But either way, a history network. And then I started looking into it with Klaus Dona and Nassim Harriman. Some of
Right.
these,
That's where I first saw them from. And they
yeah.
took it very serious.
Yeah. So it was hard to just dismiss it, I guess, and again, that's kind of what kept my eye pried open, was seeing Scott's work on this. And Scott's a very busy guy. He's obviously doing shows and doing all these things with Freemasonry and the Knights Templar. I mean, he's a wealth
Right.
of
Like,
information on this topic. So
look at
this
this.
isn't his specialty.
For sure. And So I just got to point this out right here that, like, look at this apron. Like, that is a pretty close to a Freemason apron that also included, like, there's so much occult and esoteric, like, information
Symbology.
and styles and symbology exactly included in these, that it's like, if it's the world's greatest hoax, or a bunch of it's real, and then all the fake ones being made are, of course, just the locals trying to make money, but they're based off of the real ones that are all there, authentic, and telling the original source creation, civilization and story.
Yeah.
Like, that's alchemy.
It's been pretty breathtaking, like to photograph it and to learn about it. I think that I mean, it's the stories touched me to the point where I've picked up books that I never ever thought I would catch myself reading, you know, including the Bible. Like, I was never able to sit down and read this book because it didn't make sense to me. There's too many questions. I didn't want to go sit through church and have to deal with the, you know, all this stuff, and I just wanted to know, and so this whole topic has unlocked that and makes it all make sense to me on a level that is really interesting. Because I mean, I'm not a religious guy, but at the same point, it's hard not to acknowledge this creation and the fact that there's so many people on this planet that believe in a figure called God of some form or another. It definitely makes me keep an open mind as well to that, because I was closed-minded on that for 38 years. Pretty much brushed it out of my life. I just couldn't buy into any of this stuff, aliens or religion. It seemed so far-fetched from what I could see. And yeah, now I question everything.
The only way to, and that's the goal, right? The faith in God and the spirits, and to question everything.
Yeah, it's a
Good
beautiful
morals,
thing.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, it really seems to drive the purpose, and the mystery in itself, the whole part of disclosure and the mystery around it, as feeding so much energy to this topic, and to respect our history. I mean, we're doing it right now, and so many other people are too, just because they don't know. So this whole disclosure thing is keeping us motivated and keeping us trying harder and being more faithful. And so that's a interesting take on it too, you know. What if we all knew right now? What are we going to go do? You know.
My life would be boring.
I know. Or I was thinking about that.
Or we'd be on our own little spaceships and portals and all sorts of great stuff. So
way bigger responsibilities. Yeah.
Right, like, is that a space astronaut sort of hat? That's got to be a breathing apparatus being depicted right there. Clearly, like, some astronaut stuff with the UFO, and then the alchemy symbols with proto-alchemy and some Egyptian style. It's very, very wild. Like,
yeah, a lot going on.
Most definitely. All right. Well, we're almost at 2 hours, good sir, and I like to keep it under 2, so the AI thing will make a bunch of short clips for us. Last closing words or stuff to show off. What you got coming next?
Coming next, we've got another documentary in the works, and this time in Abuelo Stilisco, and you know, the book that I'm formulating is essentially just going to show the scientific merit between what we believe is real and what we believe is fake, and the reasons why, and so people can use that knowledge and that research for their own research to try to put this topic to bed one way or the other. And you know, any of the naysayers from this video in the comments, I just suggest that go out there and prove it the way you say and bring it to the table. I'm sure BurnEye will put you on and let you know, bring your case to the table, and let's get this figured out, because if it isn't right, I want to know. And both, you know,
right, like, you win $5,000 bet if they turn out to be fake from your friend, right? Like,
I do have a bet with my friend. Yeah, we made a wager. I just couldn't believe it. So yeah, one way or another, I'm coming out ahead here, but not spiritually, it's a win-win too. I mean, just to know on something this big is huge. So
For sure. And maybe do you want to just show off a little bit of the inside of a couple of your books there, and why, like,
yeah,
it's not just cheap paper. You got photos throughout, and like it's high quality.
these are done. I'm a photographer, so the photos that we got in this book are really high quality. It goes through all the different things, how they're luminescent, showing side by side, and deep descriptions of theories and ideas of what we think these items are to be or what they were used for. Describes our journey with the Nazca mummies, as well as the stone ones that we found here, even with the metal implants depicted in the stone carving, which is really fascinating. It goes into all the petroglyphs and the digs, and so this book's my pride and joy. It's the Anunnaki book. You can find it on Amazon. Just search for Michael Forrest or Alien Anunnaki. Those two words together, it pops up pretty good in the search engine. But my other two books, Abuelos Jalisco and Tula Hidalgo, are essentially just to describe and show the pieces from each of those cities. And so people, when they look at these, or when I'm doing a presentation like this, that when you see one of the pieces, you'll be like, oh, that's an Abuelos piece, or that's a Tula piece. Making that to define the difference is really a challenge at first, and so that was my intent on those two books more so. But this encompasses more of the whole journey, the research, and the mission, and so if you're looking for something like that for a coffee table discussion, I think that's the winner.
Right. And like at the very least, it is like ridiculously beautiful, well crafted, just inclusive of nonstop occult and esoteric symbols, symbology, and just beautiful artwork. And that, the pictures of them, whether you believe they're fake, whether you believe they're real, they're visually stunning at the very least, and has a lot of occult and esoteric knowledge within them, which, the more I've always just had the intuition when seeing the original presentations by Nassim and Klaus, I needed to find out more about this, and that they seemed genuine to me from my own understanding of alchemy and lost hidden technology and society and civilization, and that they definitely all the work you have put in, all the resources you have put into it keeps coming back, showing that the originals, the masters, the Tula site, the caves, that they're legitimate as can be, and that you are open and you prove lots of the fakes too, and that you've been sold obviously some fakes along with the originals, and that's just part of the process, and you're transparent about it.
I'll tell you one last thing. So we got this pitchfork, right? And initially, this guy tried to sell me this. It looked like an Atlantean pitchfork, and we'd found carvings with it on there, but never the actual fork itself. So we bought it, and we got it, and we're positive it's modern. It's got cuts. The metal head is not right. And when I showed it to the guys from Tula, they're like, "Oh man!" And so they knew that this was copied. That the one that was sold to me was a replica of the one that they actually found, but they never brought it out to the public or anything like that. But the guys that were with them, that found it with them, took pictures and made this replica from it. Well, they wanted to sell me the real one so I could compare the research on there. And so tomorrow, FedEx is supposed to drop off the original pitchfork, which is about a 3.5 foot tall Atlantean pitchfork with a metal alloy head that looks, I can't wait to show it. So check out our feed tomorrow. I'll be posting pictures, but I'm really excited for this. It's been a mission to get, and deserves a story in itself. So,
well, regardless, we will be having you back sooner than later, and with the sounds of that, we're definitely going to have you back later this week or next week if you got the time for it, my friend. And look forward
anytime,
to seeing
man.
that.
This is what I do.
Appreciate it. Love it. Love you, brother. And everyone, please do make sure you go over and subscribe to Mike Alien Carvings YouTube. And on that note, I got to end it so I can do the AI clips. Love you all. Thanks, bye. See you on the
Have a
next
good
one.
night.
Bye.
You crazy mother. Yeah.
It's just BurnEye.